Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Sensational Stories. Before we get into the episode, I wanted to give you a little bit of news. First bit is that three of the parents that are taking part in today's episode, we've actually banded together and we've created a group page on Facebook. This is all to support the SEN community, so it'll have news, articles, competitions, basically everything we can think of to support the SEN community. The second bit of news is that I'm going to be upgrading my equipment for the videos. I've ordered a new battery for my camcorder and I can film through that and also link up my microphone, so I won't have to film through the mobile anymore, so the quality should be getting better, hopefully by the next episode. The third bit of news is season 1's going to have 6 episodes. At the end of episode 6, all the parents that took part in Sensational Stories will have their names written on a piece of paper and put into a hat. My son will then draw 2 names out of a hat, and the names that he picks, they will both win £100 each to spend on your child or children. So let's get straight into question 1, and the first person to answer is Autism Hood J.
Okay, we're answering these questions for the Grumpy Dad. And this is Jay from Autism Hood Jay, my son Seamus. Say hey.
Hey.
Hey. Okay, the first question was, when did we figure out, Seamus, we need additional support? I figured that out probably around 3 years old, because 3 years old is when he started to go to special needs preschool, and in order to go to special needs preschool, he had to be evaluated. He had to be tested by the school board, and then they recommended him, be tested for just special needs. They didn't say autism at first. They just said be tested for like learning disabilities. So we did that. I took him down there and they did the whole shebang, tested him for like a week, and then came back for another week of testing and did the whole thing, tested for everything, brain damage, fetal alcohol syndrome, everything. And finally, after all the testing, came back autism, ADHD, and then later on epilepsy. So to answer that question, around 3 years old, in order to go to special needs preschool.
Next person to answer question 1 is SEN Warrior Mum Kelly, and she answers the following question: when did you suspect your child might need additional support? I knew from around 18 months my daughter was delayed in all areas and wasn't meeting her milestones, but she had such an amazing character, I wouldn't change her for the world. Next up for question 1 is SEN Mum Charlie, and she suspected her child might need additional support at 6 months old. Next up for question 1 is Bethtastic, and she answers by saying the following: with my eldest, I knew she would face challenges from the moment she was born, as she was diagnosed at birth. We didn't have a clue what those challenges would be, but we knew whatever those turned out to be, we'd face them together with her as a family. Next to answer question 1 is Send Mummy Lisa. In primary school and reception, I realised there was more to the difficulties, and now it was becoming obvious to others. For years, I adapted everything to make it easier for him and to do things I knew he was able to cope with and enjoy. Before he started school, most of his time was spent with adults, even in nursery, so when he started reception class, it was very difficult for him to cope. There was a real mixture of answers, different stages, and of course with autism, as we all know, it's a broad spectrum. For me personally, I didn't cotton on. I didn't realise that he would need additional support. My wife, she kind of realised a lot sooner before me. She'd worked in a nursery setting, so she was around children a lot. I worked in a full-time job. Um, it wasn't until we went to a beach trip with a friend of hers who had a boy who was a similar age to our boy, and seeing them both play together, the language from my wife's friend's boy, it was just so much more developed. And it was at that point that I realised I think he's going to need some extra help. Even the social side, how he reacted towards Harrison compared to vice versa, there was just such a large gap. Um, and that's when I realised my boy might need some help. Next up for question 2 is Send Mummy Lisa. What was your proudest moment as a parent and why? The proudest moment was my son joining the football team. He'd been asking to play football with the team for years, and I would take him to the football pitches and the playgrounds where other children were there, and he would shy away, cry, run away, and refuse to join in. I took him to the soccer schools, hoping the routine and formal setting would help him, but he still cried and wanted me to play or stay with him, which is allowed. Then finally, he went to a football club and has started playing with the team. Next up for question 2 is Send Mum Charlie. What was your proudest moment as a parent and why? So many little moments that I've never thought I would see. Walking independently was my proudest day. I would never forget, because no matter how many times he fell back down, that day he got up and tried again. When I saw him walking and smiling that day, I became stronger and determined to make the best of his abilities, because no matter what this child goes through, he always gets back up smiling.
Okay, let me see. The second question.
Yes.
The second question is, what was your proudest moment as a parent and why? What was the proudest moment as a parent and why? Um, I can't say like there's a specific moment. I mean, I'm proud of my son all the time, you know, cause he's always learning things. He's always amazing me. He's always um, just doing things to surprise me. You know, he's a real smart kid. He picks up on things really quick in his own way. So um, I can't say there's like a specific time. I just want to say like all the time, daily, he does something that I'm really proud of that surprises me. So I would say daily, and just, you know, anything. You know, it could be anything, nothing really specific.
Next up for question 2 is Beth-tastic. I would honestly struggle to pick just one moment in my eldest's life, but I think it's more a general thing. Not only did she survive to birth when a consultant said for at least 4 of her conditions she shouldn't have, not only did she ignore their predictions and beat their milestones, not only has she shown such amazing bravery and courage at every step of her young life, but she's done it all with such a huge amount of compassion, kindness, and love, and grown into such an amazing young lady. She makes me proud every single day. Next for question 2 is Send Warrior Mum Kelly again. What was your proudest moment as a parent and why? As a parent of a disabled child, I feel that all the little things that most parents take for granted are all very proud moments for me. My daughter makes me proud every day, and I couldn't honestly only pick one thing. At one stage, question 2's answers did confuse me a little bit. It wasn't judging you, but it was kind of like, you can't pick your proudest moment of what your child's done. I will give some background, because what I do in this process is I get all your answers in, I edit, I listen, and I don't give any input until I've gone through them all. I never really answer the questions that I ask until the very end. So when that question came up and I'd finished, I asked the question, what's the most proudest moment? And for me, I said, obviously, sports day. Oh, but the football, when he was cheering on my team. But what about the first time that he walked? So it was kind of a realization. I can't pick which is the proudest moment, because every achievement that he does is a proud moment for me. Everything that makes him feel proud and happy is a proudest moment for me. Everything that he does. So it was a real eye opener. And not until after, where I actually went through the process of answering the question, that I realised I can't pick either. Next up for question 3 is Bethtastic. I can still recall this moment with 100% clarity. I was still in the delivery room. My daughter had been whisked away to special care instantly, which was a shock as we hadn't known there was anything wrong with her during the pregnancy. Then an hour later, a group of doctors and specialists came in, and I honestly thought they were going to tell me she was dead. They were so somber. They then told me what they had diagnosed her with so far, and I had never heard of her main condition, Turner syndrome. Their initial description of it was definitely scary, but I remember feeling this weird mixed feeling, kind of like a mix of determination and stubbornness. This was my baby. I wasn't just going to sit here and let someone make decisions about what she would and wouldn't be able to achieve in her life. As a mum, I totally saw it as my job to give her access to every opportunity that other kids had, and let her lead the path her life would take herself. To be fair, she proved to have my stubborn streak, and it stood her in good stead up to now. Question 3 is answered again by SEN warrior mum Kelly. What was your reaction when your child received their diagnosis? My daughter already had a statement, old EHCP, and was in a special school before she was diagnosed, so it didn't really feel any different when her diagnosis was confirmed. With my other child, it felt relief. When she was diagnosed, as she was really struggling with mainstream school and the support in place wasn't working, the diagnosis helped get her the correct support she needed. Next for question 3 is SEN Mum Charlie. What was your reaction when your child received his diagnosis? When we was going through genetics testing, I knew what they were looking for, as they had to get my consent, so I had already researched the syndrome. So when they told me, I cried. I cried for him and myself, because I didn't know how I was going to look after him. But each day I learned more about him and about myself. After every operation, each medical appointment, each mountain we had to climb, every battle we faced, I knew I was the best mum for him, and he was the best child for me, and now we are a team. Question 3, we're back with SEN Mummy Lisa. What was your reaction when your child received his diagnosis? We waited 2.5 years for a diagnosis. Our GP referred him when he was 4.5 years, and he was diagnosed with ASD. When he was 7 years old and 2 weeks later, he was diagnosed with sensory dysfunction and ADHD. I felt relieved that I could finally get others, including school, to understand why he needed additional support and why he was different to other children of his same age. He was not spoiled and did not have only child syndrome. He was a child with HF autism. I also felt upset and questioned what it meant for the future, for his future, for our future. Was I the best person to support him? Was it my fault? All the inner feelings were blame and guilt. I also felt guilty for not identifying it earlier, but nursery thought he was gifted and talented, and I didn't know much about Asperger or high-functioning autism.
What was your reaction when your child received his diagnosis? The reaction, well, it was kind of like relief, you know, just relieved to know what was really going on. I mean, I'm not gonna say, you know, shock and sadness and all that. It wasn't none of that. It was just relief, you know, to finally know what's going on, then figure out a game plan and what to do from there. So, you know, it wasn't a depressing thing, it wasn't a sad thing or nothing like that.
I think question 3, it's shed some light on a real commonality between us all. Acceptance, relief, in a lot of cases determination. For me, it wasn't like that at all. My wife went through the same things you went through, but for me, I was working full time. I had a high pressure job, and I was trying to keep a roof over our heads. And just talking about it now, I'm kind of ashamed that I didn't actually sort of find out more, because I didn't really know what was wrong with him, or what the diagnosis meant. I saw him as something that could be fixed, as a puzzle, and it wasn't until I really started ramping up research and speaking to professionals and his teachers that I realised that it wasn't the case. It wasn't a puzzle. It wasn't something that needed to be fixed. He was my son, and yeah, like I said, I'm kind of ashamed that I didn't involve myself more initially. Um, but the same as the rest of you, I wouldn't change him for the world now. Next to answer question 4 is Send Mum Charlie. What has been your biggest sacrifice so far? Sleep. I like my sleep. I have had to sacrifice my whole life. I'm a single parent to him and his sister who has autism. Everything I do, I have to make sure their needs are met first. Next to answer question number 4 is Send Mummy Lisa. What has been your biggest sacrifice so far? The biggest sacrifice is not being able to continue with my studies to start the career I want. I accept I am in a position to be able to support him, and I have to prioritise, and right now my priority is ensuring his needs are met and he is supported before and after school. For 18 months I collected him for lunch due to bullying at school over lunchtime with older children. Whilst this was a sacrifice, it meant I knew my child was safe, and it improved his mental health massively. Next up for question 4 is Sen Warrior Mum Kelly. What has been your biggest sacrifice so far? My biggest sacrifice would be my own health. It's not easy caring and fighting constantly and not getting any proper rest, especially when your sleep is affected also. But I just get on with it and stay positive. That keeps me going. Would not change anything, as this is what has made me the person I am today.
4. What has been your biggest sacrifice so far? Um, the biggest sacrifice so far, just time, really, just time, giving up everything to make sure he has everything he has and has everything he needs and gets all the services and help that he needs, So that's like that's a full-time thing, constantly trying to get him help and services and, going to talking to teachers and going to meetings and paperwork and looking for programs and signing up and, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, and plus everything else that goes along with it. So just time, I would say time, just time, that's pretty much it.
Next for question 4 is back to Beth-tastic. Sleep. Oh, how I've sacrificed my sleep. For the first 3 years, she only slept in 20-minute bursts. Not gonna lie, those 3 years, I was a total mombi. I never thought I would see the day where I was grateful for 4 hours straight sleep, that's for sure. Yet, here I was in exactly that situation for many, many years. She is 18 now and still doesn't sleep well. She has about 8 hours now, but in that 8 hours she can be awake needing support anywhere from 4 to 8 times a night, and that's a good night. So, question 4, sacrifice. This is my 7th take because I don't feel like my level of sacrifice is anywhere near the rest of yours. Obviously this isn't a competition or anything like that. Obviously we make our sacrifices in our own ways and there's different levels. But the fact is that hearing Beth's answer, and some of the rest of you that said sleep, and obviously Jay, who sacrifices a great deal of his time, the best I could come up with was social life. And compared to what I've got, compared to what I've sacrificed, most precious, amazing, the thing I love most in the world, my son, in exchange for my social life, it doesn't seem like much of a sacrifice. The only thing I can say is that your answers have given me almost, it's almost confirmed what I always thought since being part of this community, and that's the level of parenting, the level of care that the SEN community provide for their children. Doesn't matter what life throws a parent of a SEN child, it doesn't faze them, they keep on going. And when you look at the opposite end of the spectrum, and you've got a child that doesn't have any additional needs, and you read in the papers or magazines, or you see it on the TV, or even in some cases you see it right at the end of your street, a child that doesn't receive any care, and then you come across the SEN community that will go to the ends of the earth and travel further. It really does warm my heart to be part of this community and to hear the stories and sacrifices of other parents and what they would do for their children. So that is the end of episode 2 of Sensational Stories. A big thank you to Lisa, Kelly, Charlie, Beth, Jay and Seamus. Real big thank you to guys for taking part and answering the questions. What I'm going to be doing is for any work that they do, blogs, podcasts, I'm going to be putting in the description links to all that as well, with the SEN community. So we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, just come across and say hello. The other thing I want to say is don't be shy about taking part in this. If you want to comment underneath, you can answer all 4 questions. I would love to hear your answers on this. Like, subscribe and turn on notifications if you want to see more, and I will see you next time.